Well, hello and welcome to Binge Watch, the podcast where we take a look at the hottest new TV and film releases on streaming television platforms. I'm Hannah Fernando, the group editor of Woman and Woman and Home magazine.
And I'm Ian McEwan, writer on TV and Satellite Week, TV Times, and What's on TV magazines. And today we're looking at the new releases that will be available on Friday the 7th of June 2024, including the Disney biopic Becoming Karl Lagerfeld, about the rise of the German fashion icon, and Brixton-based comedy drama Queenie, starring Dionne Brown.
We'll also be checking out Hilary Swank as an investigative reporter in Alaska Daily on Alibi and Sky box sets, and director Richard Linklater's action comedy Hitman about an unlikely assassin for hire. But first, Ian, what is in the news?
The 10-part Netflix sitcom Golf will star Will Ferrell as a fictional icon of the golfing world. What else is in the news, Hannah?
Well, in Prime Video drama Haven, Game of Thrones actor Sophie Turner will play a pension fund employee caught up in a heist.
We've all been there. So, good selection, I would say, this week. Pretty varied. We're going to start on Disney Plus with a new drama series called Becoming Karl Lagerfeld. It arrives on Friday the 7th of June, and here is a clip.
Avez-vous un style, Monsieur Lagerfeld?
Je pense que vous êtes un génie et que vous allez devenir le plus grand couturier du monde.
So apologies to our non-French speaking listeners there, but at least you got a chance to enjoy a nice track from Blondie. In hindsight, Hannah, I'm thinking I should have given this to you.
I did wonder with this. I did think, has he gone mad?
Because it's all about fashion. Anyway, it's first up, it's a French drama. So, yes, you'll need to switch on your subtitles. It's based on a book about the German designer Karl Lagerfeld. It's a 6-parter. Karl is played by Daniel Brühl, and it covers 10 years of his life. And it starts in spring 1972. He's working in Paris as a prêt-à-porter, or ready-to-wear designer. We do have pet hates on this pod, don't we, Hannah? We don't like empty coffee cups and empty suitcases on TV and films. We also don't like people obviously not being able to play musical instruments, and bad fake facial hair. One of mine. I mean, I'm pretty sure it is fake. It looks dreadful. Daniel Brühl's got a beard and moustache, and it does not look good. It looks like the kind of hair you get on the Action Man dolly, you know. Anyway, never mind that. On the one hand, there's the rivalry with Yves Saint Laurent, who's played by Arnaud Valois, and there's a relationship with this dandy. He's a young dandy and socialite, Jacques de Bachet. He's played by Theodore Pellerin. So as we open, it's all good stuff. It's all disco and flares and great fashion and nightclubs. Jacques spots Karl Lagerfeld sitting in a nightclub surrounded by his trendy sort of acolytes, muses, and he decides he wants to get to know him, and he does engineer a meeting. Amusingly, comes dressed in lederhosen. I have to warn you, not very much happens for quite a long time. Lagerfeld, I mean, they talk about this in the script, actually. He's kind of unknowable because he keeps his cards very close to his chest. He's kind of unflappable and just quite quiet, really, and reserved, as sort of an observer. Jacques is a great character and really well played by Pellerin. I really was drawn into him, and he kind of becomes involved in a love triangle with Yves Saint Laurent, and rather, well, unusually, I guess, his relationship with Karl Lagerfeld, it's not consummated. Now, as with these real-life biopics, we're going to see some other celebs. So we're going to see someone playing Marlene Dietrich, the German actress, because Lagerfeld gets the chance to dress her. We're going to see Andy Warhol, played by Paul Sperra. I really didn't know much at all about Lagerfeld, so I did find it quite informative in that regard. And certainly, I've only seen photographs of him as he was sort of in later life with the silver hair and obviously the trademark dark glasses. So quite interesting to hear about his early days when he was working for different fashion houses before he became like the main man at Chanel. So, but yeah, it does take a while to get going, and I kind of feel like Lagerfeld isn't even the most interesting character in his own biopic. But there we are. Probably more your kind of thing, Hannah. What did you think?
Well, you know what? I was really surprised when you said you were going to have a look at this, you know, and review it properly, because I did think you'd pass it to me. But you know what? You're right. It's a real slow burner. Now, obviously, kind of in the fashion world, Karl Lagerfeld, we all know, you know, I love him or hate him. I think the majority love, in terms of his style and, you know, the fact that he has created kind of some real fashion moments. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you're the most interesting person behind that sort of vision that everyone has, I suppose. And he is really cutting edge in a lot of stuff he does. But as you say, it's just a very slow burner. There's lots of things that aren't quite right with this as well, which is a shame, because fundamentally you still do learn quite a lot. So I was kind of, I didn't realise about the Yves Saint Laurent stuff. I didn't realise that they kind of were, that was a real problem between the two of them. The love story, the kind of the personal life of him, I didn't really know a huge amount about, more just his fashion. So you do there is a takeaway from this. You do learn quite a bit if you're interested in him and his personal life, and equally as a fashion designer, I suppose, and seeing his journey to become, you know, a global superstar. But it's just, I don't know, it felt like it needed an injection of something into it that just made it feel that bit pacier, because it was such a slow burn. And when we say it's a slow burn, suddenly you feel like it's going to be fireworks. I'm not sure those fireworks ever, you know, they're kind of like the droopy Catherine wheel that falls off the tree, aren't they? It doesn't quite work in that way. But so I think it's worth a watch, but it's not up there with the greats, which I think is a real shame, because it could have been.
From Paris to Brixton, and our next offering, it's a new comedy drama which arrived on Channel 4 and Channel 4 streaming as a box set on Tuesday the 4th of June. It's called Queenie, and here's a clip.
Queenie, I ain't seen you for a long time.
I live with my boyfriend now.
You're not pregnant, are you?
What? No.
If you two had children, they would be lovely. Oh. She always makes such a mess.
I don't know what's wrong with me.
It's this quarter-life crisis thing that everyone's talking about on TikTok.
You're not on my side, Tom.
I can't take the drama.
So this is the absolute extreme of what we've just been talking about, because this is pacey and funny and sad and has sort of everything, in my opinion, kind of wrapped up in one, and makes it enjoyable from the off. You have, you know, it doesn't take long for you to kind of be brought into this and engaged. And many of you will have read the book Queenie, which was by the author Candice Carty-Williams, which was written as her debut novel in 2019, and she became an award-winning bestseller. And it's not hard to see why when you watch this, because this story just feels, it shouldn't feel unusual, because actually it just kind of rakes over a lot of kind of love stories and people who kind of struggle as they're sort of in their early years and what have you. But actually this does something very, very different. So it follows, it's an 8-part series. It's may be made into an 8-part series. And it follows this budding journalist, Queenie, played by Dionne Brown. And she's great in it. She's got real energy, real passion, and you really fall in love with her, despite a lot of things that she kind of doesn't do quite right, I suppose. And it follows her and her very close friendship group, navigating her very messy love life. It's quite interesting to watch, and her broken relationship with her mum. So there's kind of lots of entry levels to this, a lot of ways that will engage people and probably have people relating to it. And she's already 25, so it's not that real coming of age story. It's not that sort of late teen. She's 25. To some people are married with children by then, aren't they? You know, she's at an age where she should have sorted herself out, but she kind of hasn't. And you see all of the relationship issues she has, which could be to do with her childhood, and her dealing with kind of traumas that she can't get away from, and she's questioning herself and her ability and her capability to manage money or have a relationship. And every path she's sort of given, she'll choose the wrong one. And It's based in Brixton, and I don't know, it's got that grit to it. I feel quite passionate about this. I've really enjoyed what I've seen of it. It feels really quite gritty and quite authentic, although obviously dramatised. And I suppose I quite like it too, because she is a journalist. She works on the Daily Read, and, you know, her personal life starts affecting her work, and it's just a kind of a vicious cycle, isn't it? It does remain fairly faithful to the book. There are a couple of new additions in terms of cast, but I think that just adds to it. I don't think that's a problem. It's not like very often when you'll read a book and then you watch it, and sometimes it's a bit of a letdown if you enjoyed the book. I don't think you'll feel this way about this. So yeah, I really enjoyed what I've seen of it. And one for you, Ian?
Well, it's the first of 2 female journalists featuring this week's pod. I absolutely loved episode 1. I thought it was fantastic, and it has been described as the Black Bridget Jones, and you can see why, because you hear Queenie's sort of interior monologue talking about her job and her love life and her family. And while Bridget experienced obviously a lot of misogyny and sexism, Queenie is experiencing a lot of racism. And it starts she's having a gynecological examination. And it's, of all people, it's Laura Whitmore from Love Island.
Yeah, Laura Whitmore,
is playing the nurse. And she's often described, because she sort of speaks her mind, especially in the face of a lot of prejudice, she kind of gets labelled as being angry, you know, angry black woman, that sort of stereotype. But in many cases, it's what she doesn't say when these things are happening around her. Just the look in her eyes says it all. I really enjoyed her family. So she's got an aunt who is priceless. Her Jamaican grandparents are very good value. We meet her best mate. There's so much to like about it. And Dionne in the lead role she's an absolute force of nature, and it just grabbed me straight away. And Brixton, just down the road from me, so love to see that. Yeah, thoroughly recommended. Over on Netflix, arriving on Friday the 7th of June, we have an action comedy film called Hitman, and here's a clip.
My name is Gary Johnson, and I'm a fake hitman. I realized not everyone fantasized about the same hitman. Every sting operation was a performance.
This is serious. I am in service business.
And each arrest was like a standing ovation.
So this is from director Richard Linklater, who you may know from, he's made so many great films. He made the sort of coming of age period film Dazed and Confused, about kind of American high school. And he also made that brilliant film Boyhood, which follows a boy on his journey to becoming a man, and was filmed over many years. An amazing piece of work. So with this, he has teamed up with Glen Powell, who you might know. He has worked with Linklater before, but he's probably best known for being in Top Gun Maverick. And he co-wrote it, but he also plays the star role, the title role. It's based on a true story, incredibly, of this guy, Gary Johnson. So he's a philosophy professor, but he also likes sort of tinkering with electronics in his spare time, as well as bird watching. And he gets a job with the police, kind of helping them build sort of hidden microphones and recording devices to sort of entrap people, you know. Circumstances conspire, and he ends up standing in for the cop who would usually go in wearing the wire on these jobs where people are kind of on the lookout for a hitman to kind of dispatch someone. So the cops send in a fake hitman, record the conversation, arrest them. I mean, Gary's a very mild-mannered guy, but once he gets into the role of the pretend hitman, he's just incredibly confident. He comes across brilliantly as like a tough guy who would, you know, kill someone for $200. It's got a slight caper feel to it. It is very funny. First half hour or so, he decides he will tailor the hitman's personality and appearance to the client. So we see him wearing various disguises and meeting various different kind of low-life types, or some quite high society types as well, who want to off someone for whatever reason. So that's kind of act one, I guess. And then act two, he meets this woman called Madison, played by Adria Arjona, who has an abusive husband who she wants to get rid of. He falls for her. I'm not going to say any more about what happens, but yeah, it's a very unusual premise. And the fact that it's based on a true story is remarkable. And Powell, he is great in the lead role, and I absolutely love Richard Linklater films. So a lot to recommend this. What did you think, Hannah?
Do you know what? It's not particularly my cup of tea, on the tin, if you like. But with all these things, in a duty of care that we have to give, everybody, kind of full, well, for me, certainly to watch things properly, to give everybody a full opinion. I liked it more than I thought I would. You're absolutely right. The main character is, it's weird because I always find scary things along with comedy quite weird as a genre, and then this is a kind of the action comedy. But the lead here absolutely takes the part on with gusto, and I think without him it wouldn't work. So I enjoyed it far more than I thought I would. I found it a bit silly in places, and when you can probably hear the enthusiasm when I was talking about the last Queenie, that excitement and that kind of I'm into this. I didn't feel that in the same way. I think I could have walked away from it, but this particular genre doesn't really hook me in the same way. But I do think the enthusiasm from the lead and the way they carry off the punchlines and what have you kind of makes it quite enjoyable. So I'm almost there, but probably not quite as bought in as you.
We're going to finish on Alibi and Sky box sets with a new drama series arriving on Wednesday, the 5th of June. It's called Alaska Daily, and here's a clip.
You're a born reporter. You're one of the best.
Why are you here, Stanley?
To offer you a job. Cold case in Alaska. She went missing 2 years ago. Her death is part of a pattern of murdered Indigenous women.
I'm one reporter. You don't need me.
You break big stories, Eileen. We're just missing too much.
Yes, so this has a big hitter in the lead in the name of Hilary Swank, who I absolutely love. I think she's brilliant, and she doesn't disappoint in this for me anyway. She's played hard-hitting screen roles before, hasn't she? And what I love about her is that she plays different parts really, really well. You don't sort of identify as Hilary Swank immediately. In this, she's this reporter, and she's absolutely dogged in her approach to anything that she does. She's really cool. She's kind of very made under in this. She looks pretty amazing, but she kind of just fits in. And this again has a real energy to it, because she's absolutely adamant that she wants to investigate unsolved murders in Alaska. She's had a fairly highly publicised fall from grace, and she wants to make a big comeback. It has 11 parts to it, and Hilary plays the part of the New York journalist Eileen Fitzgerald. And her whole career comes crashing down. Like everybody who feels that's very unfair, they want to make a comeback, and that's what she's determined to do. And to a degree, she has real people around her that give her real support. They can see that she is actually very, very talented, and she wants to. She's moved to Alaska. She's worried about moving to Alaska, but she wants to, or they've asked her to look at these unsolved murders of Indigenous women in the region. And they hook her up with another quite talented but newbie reporter. And I think, she feels that she knows what she's doing. How on earth does this new girl know? And of course, she needs her really because she has much more understanding of these women than she does. So you see a kind of duo coming up, and it's quite nice to see an all-female. Quite often, investigative journalists, hard-hitting ones, are quite male-dominated, this sort of role, and it's not. It's quite nice to see two powerful women who are clashing with each other, as well as clashing with the law, trying to get to the bottom of what's going on, because no one seems very interested. So it's really gritty in places. I think it feels really quite authentic in places. Obviously, it is a story, and I'm not sure that journalists would get away with quite the behaviour that they do at times, but I think it's for me anyway, it was engaging from the off, and it's got that pace. You want to learn more, you want to know what's going to happen. Will they be able to solve the crimes that no one else has been able to? So yeah, I really enjoyed it. What do you think, Ian?
I did enjoy it, and I wasn't sure I was going to, because those sort of two elements, sort of the dogged reporter and also the fish out of water thing, because she's obviously transplanted from New York to Anchorage. And it's just hilarious how quiet she finds Anchorage. As you say, I mean, Hilary Swank, she elevates it. And what I particularly like about it is Eileen is pretty unlikable character in many ways. She's incredibly rude. It starts in China, where she's sort of talking to a source to get information about a big political story that she's going to break on the Nationals. But it all goes wrong, and she resigns. She ends up agreeing to work for this Alaskan newspaper, which is a bit of a come down, but she's the editor is someone she knows from like years back. So she certainly ruffles a lot of feathers when she arrives, which is quite amusing. But what's good is that the female reporter she is reluctantly teamed with, Rosalind, played by Grace Dove, she didn't take any bullshit either, so they're really squaring up to each other. Wasn't expecting to particularly like it, but especially with Hilary Swank in the lead role. I mean, she is so watchable. She's superb. I thought it was pretty good, and it was interesting to see something set in Anchorage and around Alaska, learn a bit about that and the indigenous population. We've got to that time, Anna, we find out, well, you've been on holiday, but have you been binge watching anything?
Well, funnily enough, I did have a good look at Atlas, which has got J-Lo in it. Everybody was talking about it on holiday, and it made me think, right, let's go back and have a good watch of this. So I did. Thoroughly enjoyed it. It's on Netflix. How about you?
Good stuff. Well, I tried to watch the Christopher Nolan film Tenet for a second time, because that was on the BBC and is available on iPlayer. Still don't understand it at all. Meanwhile, I have two very good Netflix true crime series to recommend. One is called Bad Vegan, and the other is called Sins of Our Mother, and they're both very good. Well, we've just got time to look ahead to next week's offerings, Hannah. So what are we going to be talking about?
Jake Gyllenhaal, I do love Jake, stars as a prosecutor turned prime suspect in tense legal thriller Presumed Innocent on Apple TV+.
And the morally bankrupt superheroes are back with two new recruits for season 4 of The Boys on Prime Video. So we look forward to those and much, much more. But in the meantime, listeners,